What if the most important decision for the Boston Celtics in the coming months does not involve a trade, a superstar, or a center, but something almost no one wants to discuss right now? In the middle of an expensive, quiet reshaping, Boston finds itself trapped in an uncomfortable reality. The roster is strong, the top is extremely expensive, and the margin for error is practically non-existent. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are locked into massive contracts that grow year after year. In 2026, just the two of them will consume more than $115 million of the payroll. Add Derrick White to that bill and the situation becomes even tighter. It is an elite team, but a rigid one. And that is where the dilemma begins. The outside narrative calls for aggression, it calls for a better center, it calls for a splash trade. But can the Celtics really afford that price right now? Every market conversation runs into the same sensitive point, the 2026 first-round draft pick, an asset that in other moments would easily be placed on the table. Today, it is not. The reason is simple, and at the same time, uncomfortable. Boston will desperately need cheap contracts and players it can develop. This is not an opinion, it is math. With the new collective bargaining agreement punishing expensive roster, relying on rookie-scale talent stopped being a luxury and became a survival strategy. Players like Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, and Hugo Gonzalez have already shown how friendly contracts can sustain a true contender. The next logical step would be to repeat that model. The 2026 draft promises depth. Right now, Boston would be selecting around pick number 23. It sounds minor, but it is not. Just remember that picks in this range sign 4-year contracts at extremely low values by league standards. If that player becomes part of the rotation, the payoff is massive. If he becomes more than that, it reshapes the entire roster plan. The Golden State Warriors have reached a point where delaying decisions has become a bigger risk than getting it wrong by trying. And that completely changes the tone of conversations behind the scenes across the NBA. The season is competitive, the defense works, but the offense does not keep pace with teams that truly threaten in the playoff. A record hovering around 500 hides a deeper issue: time. Stephen Curry is still playing at a high level, but the margin for patience keeps shrinking. And that is exactly why a name from the Boston Celtics is starting to gain real traction in market discussion. The league already understands that Giannis Antetokounmpo is essentially unattainable. There's no sign of a rebuild in Milwaukee, and the cost would be destructive. The real conversation begins elsewhere. Derrick White. White does not grab attention with loud headline, but he delivers constant impact. He defends multiple positions, organizes the offense when Curry is off the ball, and does not hurt spacing. In Boston, he has become a structural piece. He is putting up solid numbers, over 18 points per game, distributing assists, protecting the rim for a guard, and standing out as one of the most versatile defenders in the league. Even with a dip in shooting percentages, his overall impact only continues to grow. And that matters a lot for the current Warriors. The team ranks among the best defenses in the NBA, but sits only in the middle of the pack in offensive efficiency. In the playoffs, that usually comes at a high price. White would immediately raise the team's competitive floor. He does not need the ball, processes the game quickly, and amplifies stars, exactly the type of player that has always thrived next to Curry. But none of this comes cheap. Any deal would have to include Jonathan Kuminga, salary matching, and at least one future first-round pick. White is at the beginning of a long and expensive extension, moving into his early 30s. For many franchises, that would raise concerns. For the Warriors, it signals urgency. His contract aligns with Curry's timeline, the present. There is also the alternative of Trey Murphy III, a different kind of player, more offense-oriented, taller, with strong shooting efficiency and off-ball movement. He would solve problems, especially spacing, but he does not solve everything the way White does. Defense, emotional control in big game, tactical awareness, that carries weight. The Boston Celtics solved an immediate roster issue, but a different question is starting to echo behind the scene. Is this enough to compete for a title? The departure of Kristaps Porzingis, combined with the farewells of Al Horford and Luke Cornett, completely reshaped the interior. Brad Stevens reacted quickly. He brought in Luka Garza to add size to the rotation and fully committed to Neemias Queta as the starter. Both have responded well. energy, effort, visible development. But the NBA does not reward good intentions when the conversation shifts to the playoff. And that is where the tension begins. As much as Keita and Garza have grown, the Celtics still lack a true starting caliber center for big games. There is no consistent rim presence, no one built to absorb the physical battles against the top teams in the East. This is not a minor flaw, it is a structural gap, and everyone around the league is aware of it. In the middle of this scenario, one idea is gaining traction: Walker Kessler. On paper, the proposal is simple. Boston would receive Kessler. In return, the Celtics would send Xavier Tillman, Josh Minott, and 2 future second-round picks. The context, however, is far more delicate. Kessler is out for the season due to injury and is entering the final year of his contract. That turns the trade into a test of trust. Making the deal would not be enough. Boston would need clarity on an extension before committing to anything. But is the risk worth it? When healthy, Kessler provides exactly what Boston lacks right now: rim protection, physical presence, defensive awareness, and real impact on both ends of the floor. He is not a headline name. He is a functional center, the type of player who rarely dominates highlight, but quietly swings entire playoff series. More importantly, he would solve Boston's problem not only in the short term, but also moving forward. Because if Boston waits too long, another team may identify the same opportunity. And when that happens, the price rises, or the window simply closes. So the final question is not whether Walker Kessler makes the Celtics better. That seems obvious. The real question is whether Boston is willing to take the risk now to close the biggest gap on the roster, or if it will gamble that the problem fixes itself before it is too late. The Boston Celtics return from another road trip with important wins, move closer to the top of the Eastern Conference, and still carry an uncomfortable feeling behind the scenes. The team is playing well, competing every night, but one question refuses to go away. Is this roster complete enough to go all the way? With the trade deadline approaching, attention shifts briefly away from the standings and toward decisions that could change the direction of the season. Brad Stevens knows it. The level of play has risen, the margin for adjustments has shrunk, and every choice now needs to carry playoff weight. The roster clearly misses a reliable backup center, someone who can step on the floor and handle physical minutes without collapsing the defensive standard. Names begin to surface in internal discussions. Nikola Vucevic appears as a spacing option, but the fit is complicated and the cost feels unrealistic. Kevin Looney brings defense and rebound, but his offensive impact has nearly vanished, and the contract does not help. The Celtics cannot afford a mistake at this level. And that is where the real dilemma begins. Boston is not just looking for a name to fill space. The goal is to find someone who helps now, but also does not compromise the team's financial future. A low-cost addition, or someone under contract beyond this season. A solution that fixes problems, not one that creates new ones. Nothing is defined yet. A lot depends on who remains on the roster after the trade deadline. If Anthony Simons is moved, the scenario changes. If he stays, it changes again. Joe Mazzulla will have options, but none of the decisions will be simple. There is also a third piece in this puzzle: the open roster spot. The Celtics are likely to wait until the end of the regular season for tax-related reasons. The choice of the 15th player will be pragmatic, based on immediate need. If a center goes down, Amari Williams gains traction. If the demand is experience, Ron Harper Jr. becomes an option. There is no rush, but there is constant monitoring. The central question is simple and heavy at the same time. Will the Celtics use the trade deadline to correct their flaws while there is still time? Or will they bet that the current roster can handle the pressure when games stop forgiving any mistake?